As people begin the long, slow task of cleaning up, many are facing the heartbreaking news that their insurance won't cover the damage. The federal and Queensland governments met the insurance industry today, urging them to be compassionate and fair. The industry says it's already received thousands of claims for almost $370 million worth of damage, and that's before the most recent flooding has been properly assessed.
Cafe owner Jason Corlin thought he'd done everything to stop the floodwaters inundating his West End cafe.
Came up to about here.
But despite all efforts, the water couldn't be halted.
Nobody really cares about the place and everybody's just watching a family member slowly drown. I say it's quite disheartening. But hey, we're not the only ones in the same boat.
Despite paying thousands of dollars in premiums, he's not sure if his insurance company will pay for the damage.
We'll look through it and see again, it's still going through fine print. But all I've been told is take a lot of photos of the place, the damage and so on. You might claim, you might not. And we'll give it a go.
It's a story being repeated across Queensland and other flood-affected states. The Insurance Council says 7,000 claims have been lodged so far for a total of $365 million. And that doesn't include the damage in Toowoomba, Brisbane or surrounding areas.
Look, I think that where people have got insurance policies, those policies must be honoured swiftly and in full. We can't have legalism, bureaucratism or obstruction from insurers. They really do need to honour the policies that people have been paying out good money on for years.
The federal and state governments convened a meeting with the insurance industry in Brisbane today.
No insurance company wants to be found to be the one cutting corners here, so that's important that there is a clear communication of the community expectation. We all know they're going to be under pressure, they're going to sustain some big losses, but that's their job to deliver on their policies and that's the message we'll be giving them.
The industry says it's confident it can handle the thousands of claims that will now be made. The major banks too are trying to help. Customers in flooded regions won't have to pay ATM fees for the next month. Naomi Woodley, ABC News.
Record numbers of people are expected to access the federal government's Centrelink disaster recovery repayments in the coming days. More than 2,500 staff have been mobilised around the country in call centres or at evacuation locations to provide financial support for flood-affected families. Emergency payments of $1,000 per adult and $400 per child are available to people who had to leave their home and need cash immediately.
Centrelink has been working very hard. Our hotline took 20,000 calls yesterday. We're now at a situation where 27,000 claims have been processed and $35 million made available. So that's just a start.
Businesses, farmers and workers who've lost income as a result of the floods are also eligible to claim unemployment benefits. Witnessing the suffering in Queensland has inspired the rest of Australia to help, from people opening up their homes until flood victims have rebuilt, to SES volunteers flying in to help in the clean-up.
Good boy.
Another coin in the bucket adds more than just financial assistance to the flood victims. It's a sign that the rest of Australia cares.
It's appropriate that pubs across the country, including here in Canberra, use their popularity with their patrons to get people to make donations across the bar and support our countrymen up in Queensland who are doing it tough at the moment.
Some sporting teams are showing their support through fundraising. The Canberra Cavalry are coming to the rescue by staging an exhibition game and donating entry fees.
We can't be there for hands-on, digging out people and helping them and putting their lives back together, but we can be there financially. I think we can help them. A lot of sports teams are doing that, and that's what the Canberra Cavalry are doing.
The Red Cross in Melbourne has set up an inquiry centre to reunite family and friends separated in the disaster.
The anxiety of not knowing where people are that you love and care about. The National Inquiry Centre provides that service where we take the details of people you're looking for and we do our work to try and find them and reconnect you to allay those fears and that anxiety.
The desire to help has seen social media pages spring up with offers of free accommodation. In Sydney and Brisbane, a group of IT professionals have volunteered to coordinate the offers on one site.
We pulled all the Facebook sites, the Twitter feeds, feeds from the news sites, the Queensland services, all onto the one website. And then it soon became clear we could also offer a bed matching service.
1,500 beds are already on offer. And help is on its way in the more traditional fashion. SES volunteers in Darwin are getting their shots before heading off to Queensland.
I guess we have to be prepared for anything we find down there. This is certainly the biggest disaster, I think, of my lifetime. Anything could happen.
For the flood victims, it's a relief that so many are willing to go the extra mile. Emma Renwick, ABC News.
For the political leaders responding to the flood, the task ahead will prove both delicate and demanding. And it could go down as a career's defining moment. For the Queensland Premier, the disaster response may even determine her future in the role.
It's the sternest test for any government, and in Anna Bligh's Queensland, there's a lot at stake.
She's showed a bit of emotion, but I think she's done a fantastic job in staying calm, getting everyone together.
Yeah, she's going all right. Big job.
Across the state's southeast, the disaster zone is swarming with politicians, resolute, ankle deep, can do.
These are the streets with the issue.
And tearfully honest.
I want us to remember who we are. We are Queenslanders.
Just months ago, the Queensland Premier was deeply unpopular. Now, for some, her disaster management is casting her in a new light.
In the short term, I think it's saved her from being possibly poleaxed by her own party, who are getting worried about the future. You can't poleaxe a Premier in the middle of a crisis.
For Brisbane's Lord Mayor, who was once the nation's most senior Liberal in power, popularity has rarely been a problem, but his performance is under equal scrutiny.
I'm fine, and that's my job.
The sentiment is shared across the divide.
Thank you for volunteering, appreciate it.
But this crisis has only just begun. With months of painstaking toil ahead, the public's true judgment is more than likely yet to be formed. Hayden Cooper, ABC News, Brisbane.
Let's check the weather now. Here is Graham Creed.
And heavy rain across the southeastern states peaked during today, and it'll continue to ease this evening. In fact, any falls over the weekend are likely to be less than a millimetre and mostly about the western parts of Tasmania. Now, trough causing the heavy falls will move through New South Wales, but it's not going to have much impact on that state. It'll combine, though, with a series of upper-level troughs as it moves into Queensland, and that'll trigger some rain periods and thunderstorms about southern and central districts. And totals are mostly expected to be light and isolated, but some of those storms could trigger some localised heavier falls, and the trough should contract to the tropics north from around Longreach to Mackay by Wednesday. And the monsoon trough is remaining a feature across the tropics. That's producing some heavy falls, and that'll lead to localised flooding through parts of tropical Queensland, the Northern Territory and Kimberley coast of Western Australia. Now, we do have two tropical cyclones over Australian waters. Category 1 Cyclone Vince is not expected to become a severe system. In fact, it'll weaken tomorrow as it turns in a westerly direction away from the coast. And in Queensland, the Category 1 Tropical Cyclone Zelia is expected to reach Category 3 intensity Sunday, but it'll also be moving away from the coast, and the only impact will be Norfolk Island, where a cyclone warning is enforced. So for the most part, Joe, the only widespread significant falls should remain up across the tropical areas over the coming days.
Thank you, Graham. Now, we'll have another check on the weather a little later in the bulletin, but now here's a look at the day's events.
Good evening, I'm Jeremy Fernandez. For those of you just joining us, let's recap some of the day's major developments in the Queensland flood crisis. The flood waters are continuing to ease in most of the affected areas, and now the clean-up is gathering pace. That process is likely to be complicated by waters that in some areas are only falling slowly. And in Brisbane, there's the possibility of a king tide sending the river level back up a little. The death toll has now risen to 16. The number of missing has been revised down to about 50, but police are warning that many of those people may never be found. In some parts, the river peaks are yet to come. This is how the Weather Bureau sees major and moderate flooding in that region. Southeast Queensland will continue bearing the brunt of the disaster, and it'll be some days, maybe weeks, before towns like Condamine in Queensland and Bogabilla and Mungandai in New South Wales can breathe easily. And in Victoria, flooding is once again wreaking havoc in the state's west. Many people were caught off guard as torrential rains flooded towns, sparking mass evacuations.